Greetings, St. Barnabas members and friends. We continue our reflections on the Lord's Prayer. So, Matthew, Mark, and Luke depict Jesus as a remarkable model of prayer. One might think that as the Son of God, his union with his God was automatic and that he didn't need to have set-aside times for prayer. Well, apparently that's not the case. These three Gospels repeatedly tell of how Jesus would rise very early in the morning and go out into the wilderness alone and spend time in prayer. And on at least one occasion, he was there all night. And the disciples would get anxious. They would be searching for him, and finally they would find him and they would say, "Lord, everyone is looking for you. They need you." And Jesus, I don't know, I wonder if it wasn't with a wistful look. He would say, "No, we must go to the other towns and villages and proclaim the good news of God's arrival." Now, I'd like to invite you to ponder that for just a moment with me. Just kind of take a minute and think about this. We live in a world that tends to define our value by what we produce, what we accomplish, what we get done in one way or another. Jesus seemed to define his life by doing the will of the one who sent him. If Matthew, Mark, and Luke depict Jesus as often going out into the wilderness to pray, the Gospel of John depicts Jesus as virtually always praying. It's in the Gospel of John where Jesus says, "I only do and say the things I see my Father doing and saying. I came not to do my own will, but the will of the one who sent me. My food is to do the will of the one who sent me." Now, we don't have a record of how Jesus prayed in the wilderness. We don't have his words or his silence or his posture. Throughout the Gospels, we have prayers of Jesus scattered here and there. And by the way, they depict a tender, intimate intimacy that he had with his Abba. And then we have the prayer that Jesus taught us, what we call the Lord's Prayer. And this prayer is our guide to enter into that same intimate relationship with our God. It invites us to enter into Abba, or whatever name we would have for God. Enter into God, into eternity now. And there, become free. Come to nothing. Let go of everything. Come to peace. Come to peace. And there, discern the will of our God. A process of letting go of the anxieties and the distress and the fear and all the expectations. Come to peace and begin to discern the will of our God. Now, I don't imagine that Jesus was in distress, but I do imagine that the demands and the needs, and especially the expectations of everyone around him pressed in on him. And he would wander out into the wilderness alone and pray. And I think the Lord's Prayer is the prayer he gave us to guide us in that same way. It can be very challenging. The world presses in on us with its demands and its expectations. And it wants us to produce. What have you done for me lately? On the other hand, maybe the greatest gift any of us can give the world is a peaceful human being. And then from that place of peacefulness, hear the whispers of the Spirit. Feel the vibrations of the Spirit in our own spirit that say to us, go this way. Let your gifts bear fruit. Unite heaven and earth. Amen.